Let me take you to a place where love and duty wove the fabric of my life. My name is Emily, and at 26, I was the heartbeat of a modest brick house in Raleigh, North Carolina. Picture a suburb where oak trees shade the sidewalks, where neighbors swap stories over backyard fences, and where the hum of community feels like a warm embrace. This was my world, a corner of Raleigh where family wasn't just a word, it was everything. I grew up believing that being a good daughter meant carrying the weight of those I loved, no matter how heavy it got. And for years, that belief defined me, shaped me, and in ways I didn't yet see, confined me. Our home was small, but alive with memories. My dad, James, was a mechanic, his hands etched with grease from long shifts at a garage off Capitol Boulevard. His laugh could fill a room, but his shoulders sagged from years of wrenching engines and worrying about bills. My mom, Linda, was a part-time librarian, her days spent cataloging books when her asthma didn't pin her to the couch, gasping for air. Then there was my younger brother, Noah, 3 years my junior, a college student at UNC Chapel Hill, with a smile that could charm the stars from the sky. Noah had a way of gliding through life, his mistakes softened by his effortless charisma. Me? I was the steady one, the daughter who fixed things, who smoothed edges, who made sure our family stayed whole. From childhood, I wore responsibility like a second skin. When Noah threw tantrums over broken toys, I'd distract him with a game of checkers, coaxing giggles from his frowns. When James and Linda argued about late bills, their voices sharp in the kitchen, I'd slip in with a joke or a question about dinner, easing the tension. School was my refuge, a place where I thrived. Teachers loved me. I turned in every assignment, aced every test, and earned report cards glowing with praise for my maturity and kindness. I loved learning, loved the way history or literature opened windows to worlds beyond Raleigh. But home was where my heart anchored itself. I believed family was a sacred pact, a promise to show up, to give everything, to never let go. That belief took root in Raleigh's culture, where community runs deep. In our neighborhood, folks rallied for each other potlucks for new babies, fundraisers for sick kids, prayers at church for struggling families. I soaked up that spirit, volunteering at local food drives, stacking cans at the Raleigh Food Bank with a team of smiling strangers. It felt right, like an extension of my role at home. I wasn't just Emily the daughter. I was Emily the giver, the one who made things better. And when I looked at my family, I saw a chance to live that value every day. The first time I truly sacrificed for them was my senior year of high school. James's garage hit a rough pack orders slowed, and his hours were slashed. Linda's asthma worsened, forcing her to miss shifts at the library. Bills stacked up on the kitchen counter, and I saw the strain in their eyes, the way James rubbed his neck, the way Linda's hands trembled over her inhaler. I couldn't just watch. So, I got a job at a diner on Hillsborough Street, flipping burgers and pouring coffee after school. The work was grimy, the hours long, but when I handed James my first paycheck, $220, minus a few bucks for gas, relief on his face was worth every greasy apron. "Emily, honey, you don't have to do this," Linda said, her voice soft but her fingers tight around the check. "We're family," I replied, my chest swelling with pride. "We take care of each other." Those words became my compass. They guided me through college at NC State, just a short drive from home. While my friends chased frat parties or spring break trips, I worked weekends at a campus bookstore, sending money home for groceries, Noah's school fees, or Linda's prescriptions. I lived in the cheapest dorm, ate ramen to save cash, and skipped study abroad programs I dreamed of: Paris, Florence, places that felt like fairy tales. Instead, I organized food drives, hauling donations with volunteers who became like family. The praise I got fueled me. Neighbors stopped me at the grocery store saying, "Emily, your parents are so lucky." At church, Linda would beam, telling everyone, "Our Emily's got a heart of gold." James bragged to his garage buddies about his responsible daughter. Their words were like sunlight, warming me, convincing me I was doing it right. But there was a shadow I didn't see. Every dollar I gave, every dream I deferred, chipped away at something inside me. I told myself it was temporary, that family came first, that love meant sacrifice. I didn't notice how my own light was dimming, how my identity was shrinking to fit the role of the perfect daughter. I was so busy being indispensable that I forgot to ask what I needed. what I wanted, who I was beyond the giver. Raleigh's community spirit, so beautiful in its togetherness, had taught me to prioritize others, but it hadn't taught me balance. Looking back, I see the seeds of what was coming. I was building a life on a foundation of love, but it was a love that asked too much. I thought I was strengthening our family, forging bonds that would last forever. Instead, I was weaving a knee-tone that would soon tangle me in ways I never imagined. Love, I believed, was about giving everything. No questions asked. But real love, I'd learned, leaves room for you to breathe, to grow, to be whole. So, friends, that's where my story begins in Raleigh, in a home filled with love and duty, where I thought I had it all figured out. Have you ever felt that pull, where family feels like your whole world, where giving feels like the only way to prove you belong? I was there, pouring my heart into a role I thought was mine forever. But life has a way of teaching you what love really means, and my lesson was coming. Stick with me, because this journey from a daughter's duty to a woman's freedom is one that changed everything. What's your story? Where are you listening from today? Let's walk this path together, because the truth is waiting, and it's worth every step. Welcome back, friends. I'm Emily, and this is where my story deepens, where love became a weight I carried with pride, but also with a quiet ache I couldn't name. In our little brick house in Raleigh, North Carolina, I was the daughter who held everything together, pouring my heart and soul into keeping my family afloat. But as I gave more, I began to lose sight of myself, caught in a rhythm of duty that felt both sacred and suffocating. Let me take you into those days, when every choice I made was for them, and when the cracks in my world were just starting to form. Life in Raleigh had a steady pulse, a blend of southern warmth and bustling energy. Our suburb, with its oak-lined streets and friendly neighbors, felt like a cocoon, a place where family was the center of everything. After college at NC State, I moved back home, not because I had to, but because it felt right. My dad, James, was still wrenching engines at the garage, his hands stained with grease and his back stiff from years of labor. My mom, Linda, battled asthma. Her part-time shifts at the library often cut short by wheezing spells that left her pale and tired. My younger brother, Noah, was a junior at UNC Chapel Hill, chasing a biology degree with a carefree charm that made his path seem effortless. And me? I was the one who made sure the bills were paid, the fridge was stocked, and the worry stayed at bay. My days were a carefully choreographed dance of responsibility. I'd wake at 5 a.m., lacing up sneakers for a quick jog around our block, the cool Raleigh air clearing my mind. By 7, I was at my graphic design job downtown, crafting vibrant ad campaigns for a startup that buzzed with creativity. I loved the work turning ideas into visuals. Felt like magic, but my heart was always half at home. After 5 p.m., I dashed to a coffee shop on Hillsborough Street, where I poured lattes and chatted with regulars until 10. Weekends were no reprieve. I'd pull extra shifts at the coffee shop, then run errands grocery shopping at Food Lion, picking up Linda's inhalers, or driving her to pulmonologist appointments when James was stuck at the garage. I cooked comfort meals 3 nights a week, like chicken pot pie, filling our home with warmth. Between both jobs, I was clocking 65 hours a week, my body running on caffeine and determination. The financial load was heavy. Our mortgage was $1,950 a month, a number that loomed over every paycheck. When James and Linda asked me to take it over, they called it a temporary fix, their voices soft with gratitude. "Just until we're back on our feet," Linda said, her eyes tired but hopeful. I nodded, signing checks without hesitation. I also covered utilities, electric, water, internet plus groceries for 4, which ran $600 a month. Noah's college expenses piled on. $500 for lab fees, $300 for textbooks, even $200 for a cracked laptop screen. When his Honda needed new tires, I paid the $400 bill, telling myself it was for his future. These weren't just numbers, they were my love, measured in dollars and cents, a tangible way to show I cared. But love came at a cost I didn't fully see. My social life withered. Friends from NC State stopped inviting me to brunches or movie nights when I kept saying no, too tired or too broke. I hadn't been on a date in years. My evenings spent balancing budgets instead of chasing romance. My dreams of traveling to Paris, of saving for a master's degree, faded into someday, promises I no longer believed. I told myself it was worth it. When James smiled, free from the stress of overdue bills, or when Linda hugged me saying, "You're our blessing," it felt like enough. Neighbors reinforced it, stopping me at church to say, "Emily, you're a saint for all you do." Their praise was like a warm blanket, wrapping me in purpose. My secret lifeline was poetry. Late at night, when the house was still, I'd pull out a worn notebook and write verses about carrying the world, about love that felt like a river beautiful but relentless. I hold the stars for them, but who holds mine? I wrote one night, tears smudging the ink. I never shared these words. They were my private rebellion, a space where I could feel the weight without breaking. During the day, I kept volunteering at the Raleigh food bank, sorting donations with a team that felt like a second family. It was my escape, a reminder that giving could feel joyful, not just obligatory. Raleigh's culture fed my sense of duty. In our community, family was sacred. People showed up for each other, whether it was a casserole for a sick neighbor or a fundraiser for a struggling family. I saw my role as part of that tapestry, a daughter honoring her roots. But I didn't see how my giving was tilting out of balance. I was so focused on being the rock that I ignored the cracks forming beneath me. James and Linda's gratitude, once heartfelt, was starting to feel routine, their thanks more habit than heart. Noah, with his easy smile, took my help without question, spending money on concert tickets while I skipped new shoes to cover his bills. I brushed it off, telling myself, family meant sacrifice, that love meant saying yes, always. Looking back, I see the truth I missed. Love wasn't just about giving, it was about being seen, valued, not just for what you provide, but for who you are. I was pouring myself into a role that left no room for Mimi dreams, my needs, my voice. Every check I wrote, every errand I ran, was a brick in a wall I thought was love, but was really a cage. I believed I was building a stronger family, but I was also building expectation sons that would soon turn against me. So, friends, this is where I stood, in the heart of Raleigh, carrying the weight of love with a smile I thought would never fade. Have you ever given so much that you forgot to save something for yourself? That was me, believing every sacrifice brought us closer, not seeing how it was pulling me apart. Stay with me, because this story is about to shift, and the lessons I learned about love, about worth, about freedom are ones I want to share with you. Where are you listening from today? Let's keep going, together. Hello again, friends. I'm Emily, and this is where my story takes a turn, where the love I poured into my family in Raleigh, North Carolina, began to feel like a one-way street. In our modest brick house, nestled in a suburb where oak trees whispered community and connection, I was still the daughter who paid the bills, ran the errands, and kept the peace. But something was changing, like a slow leak in a dam I didn't yet see. The gratitude that once warmed my heart was fading, replaced by criticism and indifference that left me questioning my place. Let me walk you through those days, when the cracks in our family's foundation grew too wide to ignore, and when I began to wonder if love was supposed to hurt this much. Life in Raleigh had taught me that family was sacred, a bond forged in shared struggles and unwavering loyalty. I carried that belief as I juggled my graphic design job downtown and weekend shifts at the coffee shop on Hillsborough Street, pouring every paycheck into our home. The $1,950 mortgage, the $600 grocery bills, Noah's $500 lab fees for UNC Chapel Hill Day, were my way of saying, I love you, to my dad, James, my mom, Linda, and my younger brother, Noah. I drove Linda to her pulmonologist, cooked chicken pot pie to fill our kitchen with warmth, and wrote poetry in secret to ease the ache of my 65-hour weeks. I thought we were a team, that my sacrifices were building something unbreakable. But love, I was learning, could shift in ways that cut deeper than any knife. The first signs were small, like pebbles before a landslide. During Sunday dinners, a tradition in our home, Linda started making comments that stung. One evening, as we passed the mashed potatoes, she gushed about Noah's girlfriend, a psychology major with a perfectly balanced life. She's only 22, but she's got it all figured out, Linda said, her eyes flicking toward me. Some girls know how to juggle school, friends, and a future. The words landed like a slap, but I swallowed my hurt, stirring my peas. James joined in, his tone light but pointed. Yeah, Emily, when's the last time you went out? All work and no play, you know. I forced a smile, saying, just focusing on my career, but inside, I burned. I hadn't gone out because I was paying their mortgage, working 2 jobs to keep us afloat. How could they not see that? At work, my coworkers noticed the strain. My design team was tight-knit, a group of creatives who'd grab beers after deadlines or plan team-building retreats. One day, my colleague Mia pulled me aside after a meeting. You look exhausted," she said, her voice gentle. "We're doing a weekend retreat in Asheville yoga, hiking, good vibes. Come with us." I wanted to say yes, to escape the grind and laugh with people who saw me as more than a bill payer. But when I mentioned it at home, Linda's response was sharp. "A retreat? With all we've got going on? That's a bit selfish, don't you think?" James nodded, adding, "You've got responsibilities here." I canceled, telling Mia I was too busy. But the rejection lingered. A reminder that my needs were always second. The criticism grew bolder. One evening, I treated myself to a $50 scarf from a boutique near my office. A rare splurge after months of worn-out sweaters. At dinner, James raised an eyebrow. "New scarf? Must be nice to have money to throw around." The comment stung, especially since I'd just paid $400 for Noah's car tires. Noah, meanwhile, spent freely $100 on concert tickets, $80 on new sneakers without a word from our parents. When he bought a $1,200 laptop for school, Linda called it an investment in his future. But when I bought a $10 novel, James muttered about frivolous spending. The double standard was glaring, yet I told myself it was just stress James's shaky hours at the garage, Linda's asthma flares. I clung to the hope that their love was still there, just buried under life's pressures. My poetry became my refuge. Late at night, I'd write lines like, "I give my light, but who sees it dim?" The words were my truth, a space where I could admit the hurt I hid from the world. I kept volunteering at the Raleigh food bank, finding solace in stacking cans with strangers who didn't expect anything from me. But at home, I was fading. Family dinners, once sacred, became battlegrounds. Noah would share stories about his college adventures parties, internships, road trips, and James and Linda would hang on his every word. When I tried to talk about a campaign I'd designed, a project that won my team praise, their responses were lukewarm. "That's nice, Em," Linda would say, then pivot to Noah's latest triumph. I felt like a ghost, present but unseen, valued only when a bill was due. The shift was subtle but relentless. Linda stopped asking about my day with genuine interest. James's pride in my contributions turned to expectation, as if my sacrifices were just what daughters did. Noah, once my ally, grew distant, accepting my help without thanks, as if it was his right. I began to feel like a tenant in our home, not a daughter. When Linda planned a family barbecue and didn't ask for my input, I shrugged it off. But when she snapped, "It's our house, Emily," after I suggested a menu change, the words cut deep. I was paying the mortgage, yet my voice didn't matter. Raleigh's family-centric culture, which I'd always cherished, now felt like a trap, reinforcing the idea that daughters should give endlessly, silently. Looking back, I see how I enabled it. I was so desperate to be needed, to prove my love, that I ignored the signs. I thought love meant absorbing every slight, meeting every demand. But love, I'd learn, shouldn't make you invisible. Those cracks, Linda's comparisons, James's judgments, Noah's entitlement were warnings I didn't heed. I kept writing poetry, volunteering, working, believing I could fix it all with more giving. But the truth was creeping in. My family didn't see me, not really. They saw what I provided, not who I was. So, friends, this is where I stood, in Raleigh, watching the foundation of my family crumble under the weight of my own sacrifices. Have you ever felt your love taken for granted? Your efforts fading into expectation? That was me, holding tight to a dream of family that was slipping away. Stay with me, because the storm was coming, and it would change everything. Where are you listening from today? Let's keep walking this path together. Hello, friends. I'm Emily, and this is the moment my world broke open, where the love I'd poured into my family in Raleigh, North Carolina, turned to ash in a single night. In our modest brick house, tucked in a suburb where community felt like a promise. I'd been the daughter who paid the mortgage, ran errands, and held us together. But the cracks I'd ignored me parents' criticism, my brother's entitlement that had grown too wide, and now they were about to swallow me whole. Let me take you to that Sunday dinner. When I tried to mend our family with words, only to be cast out with a cruelty I never saw coming. This is the story of a breaking point, and the strength I didn't know I had. In Raleigh, family was everything, a sacred bond I'd honored with every paycheck and sleepless night. I was 26, juggling a graphic design job downtown and weekend shifts at a coffee shop on Hillsborough Street, covering the $1,950 mortgage, $600 grocery bills, and Noah's $500 lab fees for UNC Chapel Hill. My dad, James, toiled at the garage. My mom, Linda, battled asthma. My brother, Noah, sailed through college with a charm I envied. I wrote poetry to cope, volunteered at the Raleigh Food Bank for solace, and believed my sacrifices were love in action. But lately, love felt like a wound. Linda's comparisons to Noah's balanced girlfriend, James's jabs at my boring life, and Noah's silent acceptance of my help had left me invisible, a ghost in my own home. The tension was suffocating, but I refused to let it win. I'd always been the fixer, the one who smoothed conflicts, and I believed honest words could heal us. The catalyst came at work. My manager offered a promotion lead designer, with a raise but longer hours, meaning I'd need to cut my coffee shop shifts. It was a dream, a chance to grow, but it would dip the income I gave my family. I hesitated, not because I doubted myself, but because I feared their reaction. My coworker Mia, who'd noticed my exhaustion, had warned me weeks ago. You're killing yourself for them," she'd said after I skipped the Asheville retreat. "If they love you, they'll support your dreams, not just your wallet." Her words echoed, planting a seed of doubt I couldn't shake. I decided to talk to my family, to lay bare the hurt and seek a path forward. I chose Sunday dinner, our sacred tradition, hoping the warmth of shared meals would soften the edges. For 3 days, I prepared, journaling my thoughts in my poetry notebook. "I want us to see each other, to be a family again," I wrote, my pen trembling. I imagined their responses: Linda's soft apologies, James's gruff understanding, Noah's sheepish gratitude. I cooked my favorite dish, creamy mushroom pasta, set the table with care, and lit a candle, believing love could still win. Noah was home from Chapel Hill, making it the perfect moment. As we sat down, my heart pounded, but my voice was steady. "I need to talk about something," I began, setting down my fork. "I've been feeling tension in our family, like I'm not valued for who I am, only for what I do. I love you all, but I want us to communicate better, to make sure everyone feels heard." The air shifted, heavy and cold. James crossed his arms, his jaw tight. Linda's eyes narrowed, a flash of annoyance I'd never seen. Noah stared at his plate. "What tension?" James asked, his voice sharp. I pressed on, careful but firm. "I feel like my contributions, paying the mortgage, groceries, Noah's fees aren't appreciated. I'm trying to grow, maybe take a promotion, but I need support, not judgment." Linda laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "Appreciated? Emily, we've given you a home for 26 years, raised you, fed you, and you're complaining about feeling undervalued?" Her words hit like a slap, twisting our history into a weapon. "I'm grateful for everything," I said, my voice shaking. "But I'm talking about now. I'm working 65 hours a week, giving everything, and it feels like it's never enough." James's face reddened. "Enough? You pay some bills and act like a martyr. That's called being an adult, not freeloading off your parents." Freeloading. The word was a knife, slicing through years of sacrifice. "I've paid your mortgage for 2 years," I said, tears burning my eyes. "Groceries, utilities, Noah's textbooks, car repairs. How is that freeloading?" Linda snapped back. "Nobody forced you, Emily. You chose to take that on, and now you're using it to control us." "Control?" I was stunned. "I'm not controlling anyone. I thought we were a team." Noah finally spoke, his voice cold. "A team? You act like we owe you, Em. You make us feel guilty for living our lives. His betrayal from the brother I'd funded cut deeper than anything. James stood, his voice booming. You're 26, Emily, with no life, no friends, no boyfriend, living in our house and acting like you run it because you pay bills. You're selfish, hiding behind family to feel important. Linda rose, her words venomous. You're manipulative, making us feel guilty for every choice we make. It's pathetic, Emily. You're exhausting. Each accusation was a blow, dismantling my identity. I tried to explain, to say I gave out of love, but they drowned me out. You want the truth? James shouted. You're ungrateful. Get out and never come back. We don't need your money or your guilt trips. The room spun. My family, my world wanted me gone. I searched their faces for regret, but saw only anger, relief. You want me to leave? I whispered. Barely audible. It's best for everyone, Linda said, her voice final. Noah nodded, sealing the betrayal. I stood, my legs trembling. Okay, I'll go. The calm in my voice surprised me. A spark of strength amid the wreckage. I expected them to stop me, to soften, but they didn't. Upstairs, I packed 2 suitcase clothes, laptop, my poetry notebook, a photo of us at a long-ago picnic. I left behind furniture, books, the life I'd built. Downstairs, they talked and laughed, as if I hadn't just been erased. Noah appeared as I loaded my car. Need help? He asked casual, like this was a normal move. I've got it, I said, my voice hollow. He carried a bag, chatting about finals, oblivious to the chasm between us. I left my house key on the counter and walked out. The door's click echoing like a gunshot. My friend Sarah welcomed me to her downtown Raleigh apartment, asking only if I was okay. That night, on her couch, I stared at the ceiling, waiting for a call, an apology, anything. The silence was deafening. Friends, this was my breaking point, when love turned to betrayal in a single night. Have you ever given everything, only to be told you're not enough? That was me, in Raleigh, learning that love shouldn't destroy you. Stay with me, because from this pain, I'd find freedom. Where are you listening from today? Let's keep going, together. Hello, friends. I'm Emily, and this is where my story shifts from darkness to the first glimmers of light, where the pain of leaving my family in Raleigh, North Carolina, began to carve a path toward freedom. In the wake of that Sunday dinner, when my parents, James and Linda, and my brother Noah, told me to get out and never come back, I walked away from the only home I'd ever known. The brick house in our oak-lined suburb, once my sanctuary, was now a wound, and I was a daughter without a family. But in the silence that followed, I found something unexpected, a chance to rediscover myself. Let me take you through those raw, tender days, when grief and hope danced together, and a new dawn began to rise. Raleigh's streets felt different that night as I drove to my friend Sarah's apartment downtown. The city's familiar pulsites, vibrant mix of southern charm and urban energy was muted, as if it too mourned what I'd lost. My suitcases, packed with clothes, my laptop, my poetry notebook, and a faded photo of a family picnic, sat heavy in my trunk, a reminder of the life I'd left behind. I'd abandoned furniture, books, and kitchen gadgets I'd bought, pieces of a role I no longer played. The house key, left on the kitchen counter, was my final act of surrender. Sarah welcomed me with open arms, her one-bedroom apartment a lifeline. Are you okay? She asked, her eyes searching mine. I will be, I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. That first night, I lay on Sarah's couch, staring at the ceiling, my heart a tangle of shock and sorrow. The silence was deafening. No call from James. No text from Linda. No apology from Noah. I replayed the dinner, their words like knives. Ungrateful. Get out. Never come back. I'd given everything 65-hour weeks. The $1,950 mortgage, $600 grocery bills, Noah's $500 lab fees for UNC Chapel Hill. They'd cast me out. Tears came in waves, triggered by the smallest things, the scent of coffee, like our Sunday mornings, a laugh from Sarah's television, like Noah's once was. I clutched my poetry notebook, writing, I built their world, but where is mine? The words were my anchor, holding me as I grieved not just my family, but the version of myself I'd lost to their needs. Raleigh's community values, which had shaped my duty, now felt like a paradox. I'd grown up believing family was a sacred pact, reinforced by neighbors who rallied for each other potlucks, fundraisers, church prayers. But where was that love now? I'd poured myself into our home, volunteering at the Raleigh food bank, believing sacrifice was my role. Yet my family saw me as a burden, not a blessing. The betrayal cut deep, but in the quiet of Sarah's apartment, I began to see something else. For the first time in years, I wasn't responsible for anyone else. No mortgage, no errands, no emergencies. My paycheck was mine, and with it, a flicker of possibility. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through Sarah's window, a small mercy. I went to my graphic design job, forcing a smile through the fog of grief. My coworkers, sensing my strain, offered kind words. Mia, who'd urged me to join the Asheville retreat, slipped me a coffee. "You don't have to talk," she said, "but we're here." Their warmth was a contrast to the coldness I'd left behind, a reminder that I wasn't alone. After work, Sarah dragged me to a pottery class at a local studio, a surprise she'd signed us up for. "You need something new," she insisted. I was hesitant, my hands clumsy on the clay, but as I shaped a lumpy bowl, I felt a moment of creation that was just for me. Pottery became my refuge. Each evening, I'd mold clay, letting the wheel's rhythm soothe my pain. The studio, filled with artists and soft music, was a world apart from the demands of my old life. I wrote poetry about it. From broken earth, I shaped my own. The act of creating, of making something without expectation, was healing. Financially, I noticed a shift. Without the mortgage or family expenses, my bank account grew. I bought organic apples at the farmer's market, a small luxury that felt rebellious. I replaced a frayed jacket without guilt, marveling at the freedom of spending on myself. These acts, once unthinkable, were tiny steps toward a life I could claim. But grief was a stubborn shadow. At the grocery store, a jar of marinara sauce reminded me of family dinners, and I cried in aisle 7. At work, a coworker's story about her mom sparked envy, a pang for what I'd lost. I'd walk Raleigh's streets, passing families laughing at Moore Square, and feel like an outsider. Yet, in those moments, I'd touch my poetry notebook or think of my pottery bowl, and I'd remember I was building something new. Sarah was my rock, listening as I poured out my hurt. "They didn't deserve you," she'd say. But I wasn't ready to believe it. I still hoped for a call, an apology, a sign they missed me, not just my money. Raleigh's community spirit, once my guide, now challenged me to redefine family. At the food bank, volunteers shared stories of chosen families' friends, mentors, co-workers who lifted them up. I began to see that love wasn't tied to blood, but to respect, to mutual care. My co-workers' kindness, Sarah's unwavering support, the pottery studio's quiet acceptance, these were threads of a new tapestry. I started running again, jogging along the greenway, each step a reclaiming of my strength. I'd pass our old house sometimes, its windows dark, and feel a mix of loss and relief. I wasn't that daughter anymore, the one who gave until she broke. Looking back, those days were a crucible, burning away the illusions I'd held. I'd thought love meant erasing myself, but I was learning it meant honoring my own heart. The pain of leaving was real, but so was the promise of what lay ahead. I was no longer the fixer, the bill payer, the ghost. I was Emily, a woman with dreams, with clay-stained hands and a notebook full of hope. Raleigh, with its blend of tradition and possibility, was teaching me to build a life on my terms. Friends, this was my new dawn, when leaving home became the first step toward finding myself. Have you ever had to walk away from something you love to save yourself? That was me, in Raleigh. Discovering that freedom begins where sacrifice ends. Stay with me, because this journey from loss to renewal is just beginning. Where are you listening from today? Let's keep moving forward, together. Hello, friends. I'm Emily, and this is where my story blooms, where the ashes of my old life in Raleigh, North Carolina, gave way to a new beginning. After that devastating Sunday dinner, when my parents, James and Linda, and my brother Noah, told me to get out and never come back, I left our brick house in that oak-lined suburb. carrying only my essentials and a heart heavy with grief. But in the weeks that followed, living with my friend Sarah in downtown Raleigh, I discovered something extraordinary. Freedom. Not just from the $1,950 mortgage or Noah's $500 lab fees, but from the weight of being everything to everyone. This is the story of rebuilding myself, of finding joy in my own dreams, and of learning that my worth was never tied to what I gave away. Let me take you through those vibrant, tender days, when I became Emily, not the dutiful daughter, but a woman with a life of her own. Raleigh, with its blend of southern warmth and urban pulse, became my canvas. The city's tree-lined streets, bustling farmers' markets, and cozy coffee shops felt like an invitation to start anew. I was 26, no longer tethered to my family's needs, and for the first time, my paycheck was mine. At my graphic design job downtown, I poured myself into my work, free from the interruptions of Linda's doctor visits or James's calls about bills. My latest project, a campaign for a local brewery, earned praise from my manager. "Emily, you're shining," she said, and I felt it a spark of confidence I'd buried under years of sacrifice. With no mortgage or family expenses, I had money left over. I bought fresh produce at the Raleigh Farmers Market, savoring the crunch of organic apples without calculating costs. I replaced worn-out sneakers, a small act that felt like reclaiming my dignity. Sarah, my lifeline, pushed me to explore. She'd seen me cry over marinara sauce in grocery aisles, mourning the family I'd lost. But she also saw my potential. "You're more than their ATM," she said one evening, handing me a flyer for a pottery class. That class, in a sunlit studio off Glenwood Avenue, became my sanctuary. Shaping clay into bowls and vases, I found peace in creation, my hands steadying as my heart healed. I wrote poetry about it. From dust I rise, molding my own stars. The words, once a private escape, now felt like a declaration. Sarah also nudged me toward a hiking group that met at Umstead Park. Every Saturday, we trekked through pine trails, the scent of earth grounding me. The group teachers, artists, engineers welcomed me without expectation, their laughter a balm for my loneliness. I started performing at poetry slams in downtown Raleigh, a leap that terrified me. Standing under dim lights at a venue called the Poor House, I read lines like, "I carried their world, but now I carry mine." The applause, raw and real, was a mirror, showing me I was enough. My social life blossomed. I joined coworkers for drinks after work, their stories of dreams and struggles, reminding me I wasn't alone. At one outing, I met Mark, a soft-spoken coder with a kind smile. Our first coffee date at a cafe near Moore Square was clumsy but warm. He listened when I shared my story, not judging, just seeing me. It was new. This feeling of being valued for who I was, not what I did. Volunteering took on new meaning. I signed up to teach art to kids at a Raleigh community center, guiding them to paint their dreams on canvas. Watching a shy 10-year-old beam as she finished a colorful sunset, I felt a joy I'd forgotten. It was different from my food bank days, where I gave to feel needed. Now, I gave because it filled me, because it was my choice. These kids, with their messy brushes and fearless imaginations, taught me to embrace my own creativity, to see myself as more than a fixer. My poetry reflected this shift. I am not their savior, but my own. Work became a stage for growth. I led the brewery campaign to success, earning a promotion to senior designer with a $10,000 raise. My manager noticed the change. "You're not just here, Emily, you're present," she said. I attended networking events, connecting with Raleigh's creative scene, from muralists to startup founders. I saved for a solo trip to San Francisco, a dream I'd shelved to fund Noah's textbooks. The idea of standing on the Golden Gate Bridge, wind in my hair, felt like a promise to myself. I moved into a small studio apartment near 5 Points, painting the walls a soft blue, choosing furniture that spoke to me, a velvet armchair, a wooden desk for my poetry. It was mine, every inch, a space where I answered only to myself. Grief still lingered, a quiet guest. Driving past our old house, I'd feel a pang, remembering Sunday dinners or Noah's laugh. At the community center, a parent's hug to their child would spark envy, a reminder of what I'd lost. But therapy, suggested by Sarah, helped me untangle it. My therapist, Dr. Lee, introduced terms like codependency and parentification, explaining how I'd taken on adult roles too young. Your value isn't in what you give, she said. It's in who you are. Her words were a lifeline, helping me see that my family's rejection wasn't my failure, but theirs. Raleigh's community, once a pressure to sacrifice, now showed me new ways to belong. At the hiking group, I found friends who celebrated my quirks. At poetry slams, strangers cheered my vulnerability. At the community center, kids reminded me of my own resilience. I was building a chosen family, one rooted in mutual respect, not obligation. Mark, with his quiet humor, became a steady presence. Our dates filled with talks about dream shiz to start a tech nonprofit, mine to travel and write. I was no longer the ghost I'd been, fading in my family's shadow. I was Emily, alive, growing, whole. Looking back, those days were a rebirth. I'd thought love meant giving until I broke, but I was learning it meant honoring my own light. Raleigh, with its vibrant heart, was my backdrop, a city that held my pain and my promise. I was rebuilding, not just a life, but a cell phone that chose joy, that dared to dream, that refused to shrink. Friends, this was my awakening, when leaving behind a toxic past let me build a life I loved. Have you ever found yourself by letting go? That was me, in Raleigh, discovering that freedom is the truest form of love. Stay with me, because the journey isn't over, and the lessons are just beginning. Where are you listening from today? Let's keep going, together. Hello, friends. I'm Emily, and this is where my story faces a test, where the past I'd left behind in Raleigh, North Carolina, came knocking with a force that shook my newfound peace. 3 months after that shattering Sunday dinner, when my parents, James and Linda, and my brother, Noah, told me to get out and never come back, I was rebuilding my life. Living in a cozy studio apartment, thriving in my graphic design job, and finding joy in pottery, poetry slams, and volunteering, I was no longer the daughter who carried their world. But one evening, a text from James and a call that followed revealed the truth about their love and my own strength. Let me take you through that moment, when the past demanded my return, and I learned what family really means. Raleigh's vibrant heart had become my home in a new way. The city's oak-lined streets, bustling cafes, and quiet trails in Umstead Park were the backdrop to my rebirth. I was 26, free from the $1,950 mortgage, $600 grocery bills, and Noah's $500 lab fees for UNC Chapel Hill. My days were filled with purpose, leading ad campaigns at work, shaping clay at the pottery studio, and teaching kids to paint at a community center. My hiking group and poetry slams gave me a chosen family, and my budding romance with Mark, a kind coder, brought warmth I hadn't known. I wrote poetry about my freedom. I am the sky, not the anchor. Yet beneath the joy, a quiet grief lingered, a hope that my family might miss me, not just my money. That hope was tested on a Tuesday evening, 3 months and 2 weeks after I left. I was at the Raleigh Farmers Market, picking out tomatoes for dinner, when my phone buzzed. James's name on the screen stopped me cold, my heart racing with a mix of dread and longing. The text was blunt. "Why haven't you paid the mortgage?" 6 words, no greeting, no apology, just a demand. I stood frozen in the market's hum, shoppers chatting around me, as the truth sank in. They didn't want me back, they wanted their ATM. My hands trembled as I screenshot the message and sent it to Sarah, my friend and lifeline, with a note. Guess I was only missed for this. Then, an email from Noah popped up, titled, "Need Your Help." He wrote about struggling with tuition, calling it my sisterly duty to cover $2,000 in fees. The audacity stung, a reminder of his silence when I was banished. My phone rang within minutes, James's number flashing. I hesitated, the market's colors blurring, then answered, bracing myself. "Emily, thank God," James said, his voice urgent, not warm. "We need to talk." I leaned against a market stall, steadying my breath. "What about?" I asked, already knowing. "There's been a misunderstanding," he said, words tumbling fast. "That night, we were upset, saying things we didn't mean. You know how family fights go. I didn't. Not like this." "In healthy families," I replied, "people don't tell their daughter to leave forever unless they mean it." Silence stretched heavy. "We love you, Emily," he said, but the words felt hollow, timed too perfectly after his text. "How's the mortgage?" I asked, cutting through his plea. Another pause. "It's tough," he admitted. "We're 3 months behind plus fees. We need $7,000 to stop foreclosure." Foreclosure. The word hit hard, conjuring our brick house, its creaky stairs, the kitchen where I'd cooked for them. But I pressed on. "What about your savings now that I'm not there? The groceries I didn't eat? The bills I didn't pay?" James faltered. "It's not that simple. We budgeted around your income." Translation. They'd lived beyond their means, counting on me to cover the gap. Linda's voice came through, sweet but forced, a tone I knew from childhood when she wanted something. "Honey, we've been so worried," she said. "You left so suddenly we didn't know how to reach you." The lie was blatant. They had my number, my work email, Sarah's contact. If they'd wanted me, they'd have called months ago, not when the bank loomed. "You're facing foreclosure," I said, keeping my voice even. "What happened?" James jumped in. Linda's hours were cut, and Noah had unexpected school costs. Noah. Always Noah. They'd funded his $1,500 spring break trip to Miami, I later learned, while skipping mortgage payments, assuming I'd return to fix it. "We made mistakes," Linda said, softer now. "But we're family. Families work through this together." The word family twisted in my gut, a weapon they wielded to pull me back. "What problems are we solving?" I asked. "The house," Linda said, dropping the pretense. "We could lose it, Emily. Is that what you want?" The manipulation was clear, making their crisis my fault. I thought of my therapy sessions with Dr. Lee, who'd warned me about guilt traps. "Your family relied on you to avoid their choices," she'd said. "You're not their savior. Standing in the market, I saw it. They wanted my money, not my heart." "How much do you owe?" I asked. "$7,000, James said. "If you could help, we'd be so grateful." Grateful. The word they'd stopped using when I lived with them now dangled like bait. Raleigh's community values, which had shaped my duty, flashed through my mind. Neighbors rallied for each other, but they also respected boundaries. My hiking group, my pottery classmates, my kids at the community center, they valued me for me, not my wallet. My family's call wasn't love. It was entitlement, rooted in years of taking me for granted. I thought of Mia's warning at work. "They'll only support you if it serves them." She was right. "What if I can't help?" I asked. Linda's tone shifted, sharp. "You'd let us lose our home? After all we've done for you?" All they donnerizing me, yes, but also dismissing me, banishing me, only to call when they needed cash. I looked around the market, at families choosing vegetables, laughing, living, my life, my apartment, my job, my art was mine, built without their weight. "I'll call you back," I said, hanging up. The relief was immediate, but so was the clarity. They hadn't missed me. They'd missed my money. My poetry that night was fierce. I am not their debt, but my own dawn. I was no longer the daughter who'd crumble under guilt. I was Emily, and I was choosing myself. Friends, this was when the past knocked, and I saw its truth. Have you ever faced a moment where love was revealed as something else? That was me, in Raleigh, learning that real family doesn't demand your soul. Stay with me, because my next step would define my freedom. Where are you listening from today? Let's keep going, together. Hello, friends. I'm Emily, and this is where my story reaches a defining moment, where I stood tall in Raleigh, North Carolina, and chose myself over the pull of a past that no longer served me. 3 months after my parents, James and Linda, and my brother, Noah, banished me from our brick house in that oak-lined suburb, I'd built a new life, vibrant, free, filled with pottery, poetry slams, and a chosen family. But when James's text demanded to know why I hadn't paid the mortgage, followed by a call revealing their $7,000 foreclosure crisis, the past tried to drag me back. This is the story of how I set boundaries, not out of anger, but out of love for the woman I was becoming. Let me take you through that pivotal choice, when I learned that saying no could be the most powerful act of all. Raleigh's heartbeat at its bustling farmers markets, quiet trails, and warm community had cradled my rebirth. At 26, I was thriving in my graphic design job, leading campaigns with a confidence I'd never known. My studio apartment near 5 Points, with its blue walls and velvet armchair, was a sanctuary. I hiked with friends at Umstead Park, shaped clay at the pottery studio, and taught kids to paint at a community center, their fearless art inspiring my own. My poetry slams at the poorhouse, where I read lines like, "I am my own harbor," gave me a voice. Mark, my kind-hearted boyfriend, brought joy to coffee dates at Moore Square. Yet, James's text and call, followed by Noah's email begging for $2,000 in tuition, stirred a storm. They wanted my money, not me, and their manipulation calling me selfish, invoking family threatened to unravel my peace. I waited 2 days before calling them back, not out of indecision, but to ground myself. I sat in my apartment, sunlight streaming through the window, and journaled. I deserve love that sees me, not my wallet. My life coach, Rachel, whom I'd started seeing after Sarah's suggestion, had been guiding me through this. In our last session, at her cozy office off Glenwood Avenue, she'd said, "Boundaries aren't walls, Emily. They're bridges to healthier relationships. You're allowed to protect your peace." Her words echoed as I prepared to face my family. I wasn't the daughter who'd crumbled under their demands, who'd paid the $1,950 mortgage and Noah's $500 lab fees while fading into their shadow. I was Emily, and I was ready to stand firm. I called James on a Thursday evening, my heart steady. He answered on the first ring. "Emily, thank God," he said, his voice a mix of relief and panic. "I've made my decision," I said, calm but firm. "I'm not moving back, and I'm not paying the mortgage or any other expenses." Silence stretched, heavy as Raleigh's summer air. "What do you mean?" Linda's voice cut in, sharp with disbelief. "I mean, I'm done being your safety net," I said. "You told me to get out, said you didn't need my money or my guilt trips. I'm respecting that." James's tone turned pleading. "We didn't mean it, Emily. We were upset. We want you home." I shook my head, though they couldn't see. "No, you want my money. If you wanted me, you'd have called 3 months ago to apologize, not when you faced foreclosure." Linda's voice softened, a tactic I knew too well. "We gave you space, honey. We thought you needed it." I cut through the lie. "You gave me space because it was easier than admitting you were wrong. You only called when you needed $7,000. James jumped in, his voice rising. "We're losing our home, Emily. Surely your anger isn't worth more than our family's security. The guilt trip was textbook, but Rachel had prepared me. Your security isn't my responsibility," I said. "You called me manipulative for paying your bills, selfish for wanting a promotion. I removed myself from your finances like you wanted." Linda's tone hardened. "You're punishing us for one fight, that's vindictive." I took a breath, my apartment's quiet grounding me. "I'm not punishing you," I said. "I'm protecting myself. For 3 years, I worked 65 hours a week, gave up my dreams, my social life, to keep you comfortable. You criticized me, dismissed me, then threw me out. I won't go back to that." James tried another angle. "What about Noah? He'll have to drop out if we lose the house. Do you want to ruin his future?" The mention of Noah, who'd emailed me for tuition, stung, but I was ready. "Noah's 23, I said. "He can get loans, a job like I did." "He's not my child to raise." Linda gasped. "That's cruel. He shouldn't suffer because you're holding a grudge." I stood firm. It's not cruel to expect an adult to take responsibility. It's not a grudge to refuse to be used. The call dragged on, a barrage of guilt, promises, and threats. Linda invoked our family legacy, claiming the house was my duty to save. James promised they'd treat me better if I helped. But their words lacked substantial acknowledgement of their cruelty. No plan to change, just a plea for cash. I thought of Raleigh's community, where neighbors supported each other with respect, not demands. My hiking group, pottery classmates, and kids at the community center valued me for me, not my bank account. Mark's quiet support, Mia's warnings at work, Rachel's coaching, they'd shown me what real care looked like. My family's love was conditional, tied to what I could give, not who I was. Finally, I spoke words I'd rehearsed with Rachel. I gave you 3 years of my life, my money, my heart, while you tore me down, I said. You didn't value me then, and you only want me now because you're desperate. I'm not your ATM, and I'm not coming back to be taken for granted. James tried one last plea. Emily, please, we're family. I cut him off. Family respects each other, celebrates each other, supports each other's growth. You haven't done that for me in years. Don't call again, unless it's about something other than money. I hung up and blocked their numbers, my hands shaking but my heart light. Relief washed over me. A tide of freedom I hadn't expected. That night I wrote poetry. I draw the line and the world still turns. Raleigh's skyline glittered outside my window, a reminder that I was home, not in their house but in myself. I thought of Dr. Lee's words, "You're allowed to choose you." I had, and it felt like flying. Friends, this was my stand. When I chose boundaries over guilt, self-respect over sacrifice. Have you ever had to say no to protect your heart? That was me, in Raleigh. Learning that love doesn't demand your soul. Stay with me, because my story's next chapter is one of triumph. Where are you listening from today? Let's keep going, together. Hello, friends. I'm Emily, and this is where my story soars. Where the seeds of freedom I planted in Raleigh, North Carolina, blossomed into a life I never dared dream of. After leaving behind the brick house where my parents, James and Linda, and my brother Noah, cast me out, and after standing firm against their desperate pleas for money, I found myself at 26, not just surviving but thriving. In the heart of Raleigh, with its oak-lined streets and vibrant pulse, I built a world that was mine filled with art, love, and purpose. This is the story of my new chapter. A testament to what happens when you choose yourself, and a reminder that the horizon is brightest when you walk toward it with courage. Let me share these joyful, reflective days, when I learned that my worth was my own, and that love begins within. Raleigh had transformed from a place of duty to a canvas of possibility. The city's blend of southern warmth and urban energies, farmers' markets, quiet trails, and cozy cafes felt like a partner in my rebirth. 6 months after blocking my family's numbers, I was no longer the daughter who paid the $1,950 mortgage or Noah's $500 lab fees for UNC Chapel Hill. I was Emily, a senior graphic designer, a potter, a poet, a volunteer, and a woman in love. My studio apartment near 5 Points, with its blue walls and velvet armchair, was a sanctuary where I wrote poetry like, "I am the dawn, not the debt." My life was full, but it was the fullness of choice, not obligation, and it radiated through every moment. At work, my promotion to senior designer came with a $10,000 raise, a reward for leading a brewery campaign that lit up Raleigh's billboards. My manager's praise. "You're a star," Emily echoed in my heart, a stark contrast to the criticism I'd faced at home. I attended networking events, connecting with Raleigh's creative muralists, musicians, entrepreneurs who inspired me to dream bigger. I saved for a solo trip to San Francisco, standing on the Golden Gate Bridge with the wind in my hair, feeling the world expand. Back in Raleigh, I moved to a chic loft overlooking a park, its hardwood floors and balcony a symbol of my growth. I decorated it with pottery, I'd mad wobbly bowls, and vases each piece, a reminder of my resilience. My social life was a tapestry of connection. My hiking group at Umstead Park became a second family, our Saturday treks filled with laughter and stories. At poetry slams in the poorhouse, I shared verses about freedom, my voice steady under dim lights, the crowd's cheers lifting me higher. I volunteered at a community center, teaching kids to paint, their vibrant canvases mirroring my own rediscovery. These kids, with their fearless brushstrokes, taught me to embrace my imperfections, to see beauty in the messy act of creating. My blog, Finding My Light, was a new venture, born from late-night reflections. I wrote about self-worth, boundaries, and healing, and though my audience was small, their comments, "Your story saved me," felt like a gift. a way to turn my pain into purpose. Love, too, found me. Mark, the coder with the gentle smile, became my partner. We'd stroll through Moore Square, sharing dreamshiz to launch a tech nonprofit, mine to publish a poetry collection. One evening, under a Raleigh sunset, he proposed. His words simple but profound. "I want to build a life with you." I said yes. My heart full, knowing this love was different. It lifted me, didn't drain me. We planned a future, not bound by duty, but by mutual care. My friend Sarah, who'd housed me in my darkest days, was my maid of honor, her fierce support a constant. My hiking group, co-workers like Mia, and pottery classmates celebrated with me, their joy a mirror of my own. Yet, the past cast a soft shadow. Through social media, I learned my family had lost the house to foreclosure, moving to a small rental in Durham. James and Linda downsized. Their lifestyle humbled. Noah transferred to a community college, working part-time at a bookstore. I felt a pang of sadness, not guilt. They'd made choices funding Noah's $1,500 Miami trip over mortgage payments, expecting me to save them, and now faced the consequences. I mourned the family we could have been, the Sunday dinners and picnics of my childhood, but I didn't regret my boundaries. Dr. Lee, my therapist, had taught me that love doesn't mean enabling. It means letting others grow through their own lessons. Raleigh's community, once a pressure to sacrifice, now showed me what family could be. My hiking group shared potlucks, echoing the neighborly spirit I'd loved, but with respect, not demands. My blog readers, strangers across the U.S., sent messages of solidarity, forming a virtual community. At the community center, a girl named Lily gave me a paintinga sunrise, like my new life. These connections, rooted in mutual care, were my true home. I reflected on Raleigh's role in my journey. It had shaped my duty, but also my freedom, its vibrant heart holding space for both my pain and my joy. My blog became a beacon. I wrote about leaving toxicity, about choosing self-worth over guilt. A post titled "Why I Said No" went viral locally, sparking conversations at coffee shops and poetry slams. Readers shared their stories, mothers escaping abuse, sons setting boundary sand. I felt part of something bigger. I started hosting meetups at a Raleigh cafe, where we discussed healing and resilience, our voices weaving a tapestry of hope. These strangers, united by courage, showed me that my story wasn't just mine, it was ours. Looking back, I saw how far I'd come. I'd been the daughter who gave everything, believing love meant erasing myself. Now, I was Emily, a woman who chose herself, not out of selfishness, but out of strength. My loft, my art, my love with Mark, my blog, they were proof that life thrives when you honor your worth. Raleigh, with its blend of tradition and possibility, had been my crucible, burning away the old to reveal the new. I was grateful, not for the pain, but for the clarity it brought, for the chance to build a life that sang my truth. Friends, this was my bright horizon, when choosing myself opened a world of joy and purpose. Have you ever found freedom by embracing your own value? That was me in Raleigh, learning that the best chapters begin when you write them for yourself. Stay with me, because my final lesson is one I want to share with you. Where are you listening from today? Let's keep going, together. Hello, friends. I'm Emily, and this is where my story comes full circle, where the lessons I learned in Raleigh, North Carolina, become a gift I want to share with you. From the daughter who gave everything to my parents, James and Linda, and my brother, Noah, to the woman who walked away from their rejection and built a life of joy. My journey has been one of pain, growth, and profound discovery. In the oak-lined suburbs and vibrant heart of Raleigh, I found not just a home, but a truth. Love begins with yourself, and family is defined by respect, not obligation. This is my final chapter, a reflection on what I've learned and a call to you to choose your worth, to set boundaries, and to live a life that sings your truth. Let me take you through these lessons, forged in Raleigh's light, and invite you to join me in this journey of love. Raleigh, with its blend of southern warmth and urban possibility, was more than a backdrop, it was my teacher. I started as a 26-year-old who believed love meant erasing myself. I paid the $1,950 mortgage, $600 grocery bills, and Noah's $500 lab fees for UNC Chapel Hill, working 65-hour weeks while my family's gratitude turned to criticism. That Sunday dinner, when they called me ungrateful and told me to get out and never come back, shattered my world. But leaving that brick house was my first step toward freedom. 3 months later, when James demanded $7,000 to save their home from foreclosure, I set boundaries, refusing to be their ATM. Now, thriving in my loft overlooking a Raleigh park, engaged to Mark, leading design campaigns, and inspiring others through my blog, Finding My Light, I see the arc of my story clearly. It's not just my needs a map for anyone who's ever felt their love taken for granted. The first lesson is this: your worth isn't measured by what you give, but by who you are. For years, I tied my value to my sacrifices, believing I was only as good as the bills I paid or the crises I solved. Raleigh's community spirit, with its potlucks and fundraisers, reinforced that duty, but it also blinded me to my own needs. When I left, living with Sarah and discovering pottery, I learned to value myself for my creativity, my kindness, my dreams. At the community center, teaching kids to paint, I saw their fearless art and realized I, too, could create without apology. My blog readers, who shared stories of their own struggles, showed me that worth is universal, not earned. You, listening now, are enough simply because you exist, not because you prove it. Second, love doesn't demand your destruction. I thought being a good daughter meant burning myself out, but real love lifts everyone involved. My family's rejection calling me manipulative, selfish revealed a love that was conditional, tied to my utility. In contrast, my hiking group at Umstead Park, my pottery classmates, and Mark offered love that celebrated my growth. Dr. Lee, my therapist, taught me that healthy relationships honor boundaries, not erase them. When I said no to James and Linda, I wasn't rejecting family. I was redefining it. If you're giving until it hurts, ask yourself, does this love make me whole or break me? You deserve the former, always. Third, boundaries are acts of courage, not cruelty. Setting them with my family was terrifying. I feared losing them forever. But my life coach, Rachel, showed me that boundaries protect your peace, creating space for authentic connection. By refusing to pay their $7,000 debt, I let them face their choices, like funding Noah's $1,500 Miami trip over their mortgage. Social media told me they'd moved to a Durham rental, Noah now at community college, working part-time. I felt sadness, but no guilt. Boundaries allowed me to thrive loft. My San Francisco trip, my engagement to Marquand, showed me that saying no can be love, for yourself and others. If you're scared to set limits, know this: they're your right, and they make room for joy. Finally, true family is chosen, not owed. Raleigh taught me that family isn't just blood, it's the people who see you. My hiking group, who shared stories over trail mix, my blog readers, who sent messages from across the U.S., the kids at the community center, like Lily, who gave me a sunrise painting. These were my family, built on respect. My workshop, Reclaiming Your Light, started at a Raleigh cafe, grew from my blog. Every month, I host strangers who share stories of leaving toxicity, setting boundaries, finding themselves. We cry, laugh, and heal, a community forged in courage. Raleigh's spirit, once a pressure to sacrifice, now holds these connections, showing me that family is wherever love is real. These lessons shaped my new chapter. My loft's balcony, where I write poetry like I am my own home, is a testament to my growth. My engagement to Mark, my viral blog post, Why I Said No, my kids' vibrant paintings, they're proof that choosing yourself creates abundance. Raleigh, with its more square sunsets and 5 Points charm, mirrors this truth. It's a city of roots and reinvention, where I learned to love myself first. I don't hate my family. I'm grateful for what they gave me: a childhood of picnics, a strength I didn't know I had. But I'm more grateful for the clarity to see when love became exploitation, and the courage to walk away. Now, I'm speaking to you. If you're giving too much, feeling unseen, or afraid to say no, hear this. You are enough. Your worth isn't in your sacrifices, but in your heart. Love should lift you, not break you. Boundaries are your power, and family is who chooses to see you. Start small, say no once, take a walk, write your truth. My workshop grew from one post, one choice to share. You can start today, wherever you are. Share your story with someone you trust, or join a community, like mine in Raleigh, where your voice matters. Friends, this is my message, born from Raleigh's light and my own journey. Have you ever had to choose yourself over someone you loved? That was me, learning that love begins within, and that the brightest horizons come when you honor your worth. I'm here, in Raleigh, cheering for you. Where are you listening from today? Share your story, take that first step, and let's build a world where love is kind, starting with ourselves. Thank you for walking this path with me. Let's keep shining, together. In the heart of Raleigh, North Carolina, Emily's story unfolds like a tapestry, woven with threads of love, sacrifice, betrayal, and triumph. At 26, she began as a daughter defined by duty, living in a modest brick house in an oak-lined suburb where community was a sacred bond. Her father, James, a mechanic with grease-stained hands, her mother, Linda, a librarian battling asthma, and her younger brother, Noah, a charming college student at UNC Chapel Hill, were her world. Emily believed family meant giving everything, a belief rooted in Raleigh's culture of neighborly support. She worked 65 hours a week, splitting her time between a graphic design job downtown and a coffee shop on Hillsborough Street, pouring her paychecks into the $1,950 mortgage, $600 grocery bills, and Noah's $500 lab fees. She drove Linda to doctors, cooked comfort meals, and wrote secret poetry to cope, all while volunteering at the Raleigh Food Bank, convinced her sacrifices were love in action. Yet, beneath her pride, a quiet ache Grush was losing herself to their needs. The cracks emerged slowly. Linda's comparisons to Noah's balanced girlfriend, James's jabs at Emily's boring life, and Noah's silent entitlement chipped away at her spirit. Family dinners, once sacred, became battlegrounds where her achievements were ignored, her presence reduced to a bill payer. When she considered a promotion that would cut her coffee shop hours, threatening the family's income, the tension boiled over. At a Sunday dinner, Emily sought to mend the rift with honest words, but her family unleashed a torrent of cruelty, calling her ungrateful, manipulative, and pathetic. James's final shout, "Get out and never come back," echoed by Linda and Noah, shattered her world. With a calm she didn't know she had, Emily packed her essentials clothes, laptop, poetry notebook, and left, the doors click, a final goodbye. In the aftermath, Emily moved in with her friend Sarah in downtown Raleigh, her heart heavy with grief but stirring with possibility. The silence from her family was deafening, yet it freed her from their demands. She cried over marinara sauce in grocery aisles, mourning the family she'd lost, but small axe-buying organic apples, joining a pottery class sparked hope. Her graphic design job became a canvas for growth. She led campaigns, earned a promotion, and saved for a San Francisco trip. Pottery, hiking at Umstead Park, and poetry slams at the Poorhouse gave her joy, while volunteering with kids at a community center taught her to embrace her own creativity. Therapy with Dr. Lee and coaching with Rachel revealed truths about codependency and boundaries, helping Emily see her family's rejection as their failure, not hers. She moved to a loft overlooking a park, fell in love with Mark, and started a blog, Finding My Light, sharing her journey of self-worth. 3 months later, the pass knocked. James's text, "Why haven't you paid the mortgage?" followed by Noah's email begging for $2,000 in tuition, revealed their true motives. Their call, pleading for $7,000 to avoid foreclosure, dripped with manipulation, invoking family while ignoring their cruelty. Emily, fortified by Rachel's guidance, stood firm. "I'm not your ATM," she said, blocking their numbers after refusing to pay. The relief was profound, a declaration of her freedom. 6 months later, social media showed her family's new reality. James and Linda in a Durham rental. Noah at community college, working part-time. Emily felt sadness, not guilt, knowing their choices led them there. Her new chapter was radiant. Engaged to Mark, leading design campaigns and hosting Reclaiming Your Light, workshops from her blog, Emily became a beacon for others. Her loft, her pottery, her poetry were hers, built on self-respect. Raleigh, once a pressure to sacrifice, now held her chosen family hikers, artists, kids like Lily, who gave her a sunrise painting. Emily's story is one of transformation. From a daughter who gave everything to a woman who claimed her worth, proving that love begins within. What lessons can we draw from Emily's journey, and how can we apply them today? First, your worth is inherent, not earned through sacrifice. Emily tied her value to what she gave, but pottery, poetry, and her kids' fearless art showed her she was enough as herself. In your life, pause when you feel compelled to prove your value. Ask, am I giving from love or fear? Start small. Say no to one draining task. Take a walk. Journal your dreams. You are enough, just as you are. Second, love should uplift, not destroy. Emily's family demanded her soul, but her chosen family, Mark, Sarah, her hiking group, celebrated her growth. If a relationship leaves you empty, evaluate it. Does it honor your boundaries, your dreams? If not, consider stepping back, even temporarily. Seek connections that make you feel seen, like a coffee with a friend who listens, not judges. Third, boundaries are your power. Emily's no to her family's $7,000 plea was her liberation. Boundaries aren't rejection, they're protection, creating space for joy. Practice them daily. Decline an extra work task. Limit time with a toxic friend. Each no strengthens your yes to yourself, like Emily's yes to her loft, her blog, her life. Finally, family is who chooses you. Emily's blood family failed her, but Raleigh's community, her workshop attendees, her blog readers became her home. Seek your tribe, whether at a local class, a volunteer group, or online. Share your story, listen to others, and build bonds that lift you up, like Emily's cafe meetups. Emily's journey, set against Raleigh's vibrant backdrop, teaches us that love begins with self-respect. In today's fast-paced world, where demands work, family, social media can overwhelm, her story is a guide. Start where you are, say one kind word to yourself, set one boundary, reach out to one person who sees you. Emily's workshops grew from a single blog post. Your change can start with a single choice. You deserve a life that shines, not because of what you give, but because of who you are. Friends, Emily's story is a call to action. Have you ever felt unseen, giving more than you have? Take her lessons, your worth, your boundaries, your chosen family, and apply them today. Raleigh taught Emily that freedom is love's truest form, and I'm here, cheering for you to find yours. Where are you listening from? Share your step, your story, and let's build a world where love begins with us. Thank you for joining me now. Go shine.